Thank you for attending today's DRM Talks. We're talking about Oracle Primavera Cloud today, specifically the Task Management module. My name is Thomas Cutting. I'm a Senior Project Controls Consultant with DR McNatty, and I have worked with Oracle Primavera Cloud for about 5 years, helped several clients implement OPC, expand their environment, build out reports, and I've actually helped manage projects with it as well. Before we get started, I do want to take a moment for the safe harbor statement. Because we are an Oracle partner, we do need to state that anything we say is not directly committing Oracle to anything. And so this statement says that a lot better than I could. Our agenda today is pretty straightforward. We are going to give an overview of task management, look at the mechanics behind the task management piece within OPC. I'm going to give an example of lean management or pull planning management, and then look at the analysis that's available within the application once we get that set up. Oracle Primavera Cloud does have a world-class critical path method scheduling module that breaks the project down into the work breakdown structure, the activities that are needed, the interdependencies between those activities, and the time frame for the project. But those schedules are typically at a higher level and don't really provide the details needed to address work issues and handoffs at the job site. So you need a little bit more detail there. Lean project management is a methodology that bridges the gap between the schedule and the work site by using tasks to define the work more granularly. It helps identify handoff points and gain commitment from the involved parties. Contractors, supervisors, and foremen regularly meet to break the schedule's activities into smaller pieces. They may look at the next 2 weeks worth of work and then decide what exactly needs to be done in order to accomplish the goals of those 2 weeks. This enables them to use their experience and expertise to better define the sequence of work and address potential issues or delays or problems that might occur before they get to the work site. Another term for these sessions historically has been called pull planning meetings. Pull as in pull with a rope. Teams use different colored sticky notes to identify the tasks they are responsible for and the things they need to happen before they can accomplish those tasks. OPC introduced task management to facilitate those working sessions. The idea is we're moving from those sticky notes to a digital sequencing collaborative effort online. So let's go ahead and start in OPC. We're going to go to, let's actually start on the activities window within the schedule. Typical schedule, we have a work breakdown structure, we have activities with milestones, we have a Gantt chart, we've got start and end dates and durations for each of these activities. I want to point to a specific activity here, B1100. Demolition, site clearing, prep for excavation. Pretty straightforward. It's a 2-week activity, but there's a lot of moving parts just within that 2-week period. You've got a building to demolish, which may be one company doing that. You've got a site clearing, trees that need to be removed. You may have rubbish to be removed, and all of these things may be done by different companies, right? But this one task does not give you, this one activity doesn't give you the details to that. That's where the task management comes into play. So let's take a look at a setup feature here. I go down to the project teams and click on companies. These are the companies that will be doing the work on this project. You notice I've got a color coding for each one of those. So like I said before, it used to be that you would use different colored sticky notes put them up on the board, write down what you needed out of them. We're transferring that to OPC's task management. And this is the coloring scheme for each of those companies. I'm going to drop down into the work plan within the test. So this is the task module. It's got the handoffs, work plans, constraints, task list, and analysis. We're going to start in the work plan. And this is that activity, the demolition site clear level prep for excavate. So that's the one we're going to break down in our example. But before we do that, let me just give you kind of a look at what different activities would look like. Now, you'll notice here that this work plan, right now it's showing 6 weeks. It goes down as far as 1 week or 2 weeks. But if you're going to a job site and you're doing the pole planning, you're looking usually at about a 2 week window, right? So what's going to happen in this 2 week window for my demolition and prep, right? That's that activity. So that's generally what you're looking at, defining that out. Now, if I go, I can go back and forth in time here as well. But let me go back here and pick an activity. Let's say the land permit activity. So this is a DRM task for that company. And here we're defining who the company is, what the task is, but there's other things we can assign here as well, right? So I pull up the full card for this. The general information, it shows the activity. It shows the due date based on the where it's placed in the window here. And it's got the additional fields if we need to define any metadata for that. It's got the commitments. We haven't made a commitment to this. We'll show that to you later. This is basically the company saying, I commit to this date. It's got handoff points. So these are dependencies, if you will, on this. We'll talk through that in a minute. And any constraints. I don't think this one has any constraints, but we'll show you that. And then any discussion. So each one of these has a discussion point in it so that you can communicate, collaborate, write down notes on that and pass them back and forth on that. So that's kind of the definition of the card for that. And once I've defined it, say I've got, if I added a new one, right, we'll click on the new one that has to do with permits. And we're going to call this task submit all permits, right? And so I'm going to just take that once it's defined, submit all permits, and I'm going to attach it to this activity, right? The obtain permits. And so that gives me that. Right now it's a 1-day task. I could expand the length of it. I can move that to a specific spot within the schedule, but it's tied to that activity. What you'll also notice is if the effort on that activity, on those tasks, right? So if the task extends, I'll take this one for example, beyond its original date, you'll see that the schedule remains solid. The schedule line for that activity remains solid, but I've stretched it back beyond its start date. So you can see the impact that has to that activity in the chart here. Okay, so pretty quick and easy to add these things. I'll show you more when we get into the actual example for that. Okay, so once I've got my tasks all defined and assigned to specific activities within the schedule, I can go to the handoffs. So the handoffs are like doing predecessors and successors to activities. Not as in depth, but they have the same work to it. So here, for example, I've got install plumbing, and I'm saying that the plumbing needs to be installed before we can complete the mechanics of that. And then we also need to, the install plumbing is a start to start relationship with install electrical. And if I open up install electrical, I can actually, on my handoffs, define slack on that, right? How many days after this starts can this one start? So it does give us that capability within the system to do that. Okay. Next up, let's talk a little bit about constraints. So I've got a constraint defined here. What I like about Oracle Primavera Cloud, especially for constraints here, is I can define a constraint, right? And this constraint is the demolition start date is the constraint. And so right now I've assigned a task to that, but I can pick additional tasks assigned to this constraint. So rather than the constraint being assigned to, being tied to an activity, the constraint is the thing itself, and the tasks are tied to the constraint, right? So maybe, for example, I've got to demolish the building. The other thing that needs to um, wait for that would be let's see, level site, for example. That's part of that process. And so the start date, leveling the site would be part of that as well. So now I've assigned two different tasks to that same constraint. Okay, good. So that's the basic mechanics behind that, the ability to, in the work plan, define the actual tasks, spell those out. The handoff section where we're tying them together, and then constraints and using those to um, better uh, schedule and push activity, to push tasks to where they need to be within that schedule. Okay. Okay, so next, let's go into the work plan, and we're actually going to do the pull planning example. So we're here and we want to get over to the task that we had set up. Here it is, demolish site, clear that. Okay. So the way that pull planning works, or lean management, that part of lean management, it's a collaborative effort to define and sequence the tasks required to complete a specific milestone or time frame on the project. The process actually starts by clearly defining the milestone and working backward to identify the previous task needed to ensure the success of the final step. So in this case, we've got this site demolish, clean up, leveled. That's the activity. Now we get the different groups together, different contractors together, subcontractors that are going to be doing this work, and define it and then bring it back from there. So if we think about it, the last thing that's going to happen as part of this demolition and site clearing is going to be a site inspection. So we've defined um, a card here, a task with that information. So D.R. McNatty came prepared, said, okay, this is one of our tasks that needs to be done. We think it's the last task that needs to be done in this sequence. And these are the tasks that are needed before we can complete this, right? So we're defining what we need in order to do our part here. So I'm going to take this card, tie it to this activity, and I'm going to place it right at the end of that 2-week period. Now, as part of that process, what we've done is defined the final step. And from that, we can pull out the steps needed to be ready for that final step. And we've actually documented them here: rubbish removal, site leveled, buildings gone, trees cleared. That's our expectation. And those actually turn into the different tasks that are needed to get to this point. So of those, probably the last thing we're going to do is level the site. And I've actually got a card that I've developed here, and I'm just going to pull this over and tie it here. As a team, we're saying that that's the last thing. It's a 2-day activity. I'm going to tie it to the B1100 activity and drag it over to be just before the site inspection. Okay. Now I look at that site inspection, right? And it needs rubbish removal and the building's demolished. Of those, the rubbish removal is probably the next thing in line. Right, so I'm going to grab the rubbish removal. I'm going to tie it to that activity and put it within that time frame before the leveling. Both of those tasks are assigned to Dirt is Us. Now, before we can do that, then the building needs to be leveled, materials separated out from that. And so the building demo, that's got to come before that. We'll tie it to that, put it in here. Do we have, let's see, you said you need the materials separated. Did we say we were going to do that as part of this? No. So we probably need another task that once these buildings are demolished, we're going to be separating out those pieces. So let's go ahead and define that. I'm going to click on this. We're going to define the task. And we're going to actually assign this to the Don's demo team for that. And the new task we're doing is the separate materials for removal. Okay. And really the only thing we need for that is the buildings demolished. And that's probably going to be separate the materials for a couple buildings. That's at least a couple-day task. We'll start that out with 2 days here and define that. Okay. And again, we're just going to take it, drag it, and place it into the schedule here. Okay. The other thing before the buildings, we said the electric has to be shut off to those buildings. Probably a bunch of other stuff, but we'll just kind of leave it at that. And we'll take the electrical shut off and make that the starting point for this. Got to tie it to the activity. So now we can see it is divided by the actual teams that are doing that. And I just threw these in here like this to kind of line that up. Now, what we can do, now that we've got these all defined, is tie those together. So if we go to the handoffs and we look for those specific activities, let's see if I can find those. It starts with the electric shutoff. So I'm going to take that and tie that to the demo of the 2 buildings. The demolishing the buildings, I know we were going to separate the materials. Let's make that start to start. Start to start on that. And then the separate materials, then we can go to the rubbish removal. Once the rubbish is removed, we can level the site and then do this site inspection. So that allows us to tie those all together. I can actually tie this. The building has to be completed here as well. Let's see. Oh, so that's going to do redundant. So that's a good check on that. So we'll leave that like that. Electrical shut off goes to this. Let's do a refresh of the screen. And then we can find, here's our piece here. Now, if I want to offset this, I can go into the actual card, go to the commitments. So I go to the constraints. No, the handoff. Sorry about that. And so going from here, I can say, I'm going to do a 2-day lag on that. So we get the buildings taken down and then separate the materials starts 2 days later. Okay. Excellent. So we define that flow. Now, if I go back to the work plan, what I wanted to show you is that now, if I move the electrical shutoff, that's going to shift everything else because we've tied those together already, right? That doesn't necessarily pull it back the other way, so we'll see if we can rearrange this here. Back, all right. Set this back up again here. Separation. So this, I think we had overlapping and the rubbish removal. That was the site, and then finally the site inspection. There, got it back to where it was. Okay. Now, we've defined those steps. We've talked to the team. We've got them all right here. And we're going to go through and start getting commitments from them. So if I look at the electrical shutoff, we say, okay, this is when this is due. And are you committing your team to do that by this date? So this button here allows us to click on commitment. And so that is now committed. If I look at the commitments, then we've got this committed by Tom Cutting and the date on it, right? So that's the commitment we've made. So now I'm going to come back out of here and we'll just walk through this whole process, right? Are you good with this date? Is everything ready? Good. We'll set that up and so forth. So we go down through here and commit those. Okay. So that's what the whole planning meeting would do, would be to set this up, get the commitments from the people, and then we know what needs to be done once we get to the site. And there's actually an iPhone and Android app for this that'll actually show that in real time on the job site, so you don't have to haul the computer around with you on that. Okay. So the whole process then is to set up the final activity and then ask the question, in order for this task to be complete, I need what? And then you drill it back from that to find all of the other tasks. Once that's done, you can do a forward pass to see what tasks can be run in parallel. We did that here with the handoffs, define that forward pass. And then we got the commitments from each of the teams on that. Okay. This same process, the same concept, you could use this to create an agile approach for managing projects. The milestones themselves could be user stories or use cases, and then the different components of that need to be accomplished before that use case or that user story is complete. could be made up of that. So this could be a sprint with that information in it. And I think, yeah, these actually, if I go into the card, you'll see in additional fields, there is actually one for sprint as well on that. So that could be used for that. Let's take a look at some of the analysis you can get out of this. So if I go to the task list, we're going to see the tasks that are here. This is broken down by the work breakdown structure and the activities that are required for those. But we can also look at this from a company perspective. What are the tasks per company, and look at that. What does stick out here, we've got a couple of tasks with indicators on them. So these are tasks that are outside of the dates for the activities. So that's something you'd want to go back and look at. And then we've got a task that's overdue here. So this finalized bid document, that activity was supposed to be done. It looks like we have slipped on that several times. And so what you would do if you were going to miss your dates. So if I come down here to, let me go back to this task. And select recommit. So here I'm going to say the new date for this is going to be the Monday. The reason for the slippage on this is that we had a time estimate error on that. So we're going to select that as the reason. We could do multiples if we wanted to. Select that and then say why we missed on this, over commitment. And then we're going to recommit that. So that resets the time frame for that activity, but it also records why we were late on it. That information shows up in the analysis. So the analysis allows us to see by different time frames what was committed and what was completed. We can see by project or by company the percentage of meeting their commitments, and we can see the reasons why they were missed, right? So this shows that we had activities, tasks that were not completed, commitments that were not completed because of inclement weather, schedule changes, equipment problems, or whatnot. And there's some other graphs that show up here. This one's a good one for showing why the commitments were not met per each time frame. So you can really go back through your project and see which companies met their goals and some of the reasons that they didn't meet them, so that you can take that into account in the future. You know, what can we do in order to address these before they become problems of commitment? Okay. So that's a basic overview of the task management piece, from the activities in the schedule down to the work plan and laying that all out, and doing kind of a whole planning, lean management demo for that.